Check, 1, 2, 3. Check, 1, 2, 3. I think we're live. Scary thought. Scary thought, excuse me. Goodness gracious. There we go. Okay. Right mic, right place, right time. So, hello. For those of you in the New Orleans area, you are batting down the hatches for this tropical storm coming through. It's supposed to put in, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches of rain, something like that. It's going to be pretty wet. Bourbon Street is already flooded in New Orleans, so if you're planning to go to New Orleans, you might want to wait. It's hot here today, but not as hot as Kentucky, probably, Clint. It's only like 84 here today, so we're in pretty good shape. Pretty good shape. Let's see. Did we lose something here? Check, 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 check. Bear with me for just a second. I'm going to give away the surprise, but I gotta check this to make sure we're still doing. Yeah. Okay. Yep. We're still doing. Haven't figured out how to turn that on remotely yet. Yes, indeed. Dan, I need to talk to you. I will shoot you an email a little later. We are putting together a vMix instant replay class, and as part of the class, would like to offer a reduced price on the jog shuttle, the existing jog shuttle, 2 existing jog shuttles, and then a reduced price on the new jog shuttle T-bar coming out in September, October. I seem a little quiet. Gee whiz. No telling. No telling. I've been playing with stuff. Or it could just be that I'm having a quiet day. Maybe that's a little better. Thank you, Dan. Let's see. Oh, it's on the list right there to silence the cell phone. If that's you calling me, I apologize. I'm not taking your call. Let's see. I'm tied up in a meeting right now. May I call you back? How about that? That's a good note. That's one of the things I like about the new cell phones, or at least this one, is that I can send a message to the people that are calling, assuming they have text and they're not calling from a landline. Dave says you need to check out Giles' automation for vMix. Yes, I want to. I saw Giles sent me an email. Giles, if you're watching, I will get back to you. Sorry. Jamie says it sounds good there. Well, Jamie, that's probably because you're closer than Dan. He's way up in the other part of the country. Gunner's here. Welcome, sir. Let's see. Daniel's here. It's 89 in Wisconsin. It's 83 down here in Alabama. Go figure on that one. Rudy's here. He got the check. Glad to see that. Clint's here. Let's see who else. Scrolling back. Can we scroll back? I don't know if we can scroll back on this thing or not. We're trying to get used to a new laptop, so. Pastor Herman is here. Welcome, with daughter Vanessa. Don't give your dad trouble, daughter Vanessa. All right. Chris Morton is here. It's early morning for him. Tom Willis is here. He is here. Are you there? Tommy, I am here. I am here. And we're going to have an interesting show today. It's the part of the show from last week that we didn't get to finish. Basically diving into, we spent most of the time trying to troubleshoot how to have 8 callers at the same time. And I was going to have a 9th caller. And I was going to show you guys how to do a 9th caller. But we ran out of time. We probably won't have time for that today either, yes. PI Engineering says, Tom, I didn't get a check. Were you waiting for a check? I wasn't sending a check. Rudy received a check. Chris says it's a bit warmer today, 13 degrees. That would be Celsius. And what do? You divide that by something and add 34 or something. Divide it by, multiply it by 8/5 and add 34 or something. I'll have to figure it out. I want to know it. Oh, Dan wants a check like Rudy. Well, then you have to do what Rudy did. Yeah. How about that? Okay, let's see. Let's check a few things here while we've got a sec. One sec here. Let's see, we need to catch up to live. Didn't mean to do that. Meant to do that. Let's see if we can get away with that. Like Rudy. There we go. Okay, well that's good. And then here, if you're watching us on the Streaming Idiots Facebook page, Facebook group, you need to come to the Eastern Shore Broadcasting Facebook page for us to see the comments, or better yet, to easternshorebroadcasting.com, right there at the bottom. And that way you can get in on the YouTube chat, because that's the chat we're going to be spending most of the time paying attention to, because that's where most of the folks are. No offense, but that's just the way it is. All right, so let's get this show on the road. We're going to do a dual show today. We're going to do part of it from here in the pre-show, at the pre-show desk, and part of it over there in the studio part. You know what? I think we're just going to do the whole thing here. I think we'll do the whole thing here. I think in the long run, it'll run a lot more smoothly if I've got access to everything. So let's just do that. All right. So we need to make one change so that when we do the show opening, it sends us here and not there. So bear with me one sec. Show opening, bum, bum, bum. Pre-show, post-show, other show. I love this software. It's just so cool. Closing, pre-show, post-show. Where did I put that? Opening, there we go. Opening, there we go. And is it a trigger? Or not a trigger there. Let's see, trigger here. One sec. Nope, not a trigger there. Oh, it's better. It's a multi-view. There we go. Multi-view, main shot. And let's go with, yeah, it's going to mess everything up, isn't it? Well, we'll just start out from the studio, then we'll move over here. We can do that. We're professionals. At least some of the time. Some of the time. All right, so let's go to this tab. And sit tight, and let's see if we can't get this show rolling. And we'll mute this mic. Here we go. There we go. There we go. All the best plans. And I remembered why I didn't want to choose this particular shot. Let's see if we can stop being the blob from outer space. Did we change this to manual? I bet we did. Focus, let's change that to auto. Is that going to work? 1 second here, folks. A little technical difficulties. You know, if you test this stuff beforehand, you wouldn't have a problem with it, Tom. Come on, you can do it. Here we go. Oh my goodness. Well, you know, best laid plans of mice and men. That's what happens when you try to do too much. Well, let's go back to the desk. Boy, that wasn't even fun. That wasn't even fun. Okay. Well, so much for that. Boy, that was not nearly as much fun as it could have been. That's what I get for waiting till the last minute to do so many of that stuff. So there we go. All right. Yeah, Dave says Tom needs some sort of automation. Tom needs to come in and do his planning like he said he was going to do. But I am back here at the control desk. What I wanted to talk about today was vMix Call and kind of get into the weeds a little bit on vMix Call, because I have a lot of folks that seem to have some confusion over how it operates. And I've been through this before in a lot of situations. Is I want a piece of software to work a certain way. When it doesn't work that way, I think it's broke. And then I later learned, oh, well, you know, this is how it really works. And then I was like, okay, well, now you know it. Now I get it. Now I get it. And so let's talk a little bit at first about how vMix Call handles audio, because a lot of people seem to get tripped up on that. And also how vMix handles audio. So let me see if I can pull in some of my, let me pull in, I'm going to pull in my desktop. And that's my desktop for today. And you can see, you know, output over there to the far right has gone to infinity. In the bottom right-hand corner, way down there, is the vMix audio mixer. So let's see if we can't make that a little bit more sensible. Let's blow that up where we can see it. And everybody's audio mixer is going to look a little different. But you see, I've got some audio inputs that are closed. Those are the ones that are those bars with the text going sideways, and some of them are open, like the master is open where you can see it. The recording is open. The looking across the top, the one that says call 1, that's out where you can see it. Tom's mic boom A and desk mic ATR 2100, and then browser Eastern. Let's close the browser Eastern. We're just going to right click it and we'll just close that. We didn't really close it. We just kind of what would you say? We made it smaller. Yeah, there we go. So I've got a vMix Call, and that is this input right here. And you can tell that it doesn't have any audio associated with it. And in fact, I need to turn on the audio. I've got a second PC that's generating the call. And let's see if we can do that and bring that in here, do that and bring that in there. And that should generate some audio for the call, although we're not seeing it. Maybe it dropped the call. Did we drop the call? Yeah, it looks like the call timed out because it didn't sense any activity. So let me take a second here. I'll go back to Go back to this shot so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to go find my call. It's right here. I'm going to right click it. I'm sending low video, open call manager. I've got the call manager opened. That's this guy right here. And we can see down at the bottom, let me scroll it up a little bit, system net exemption, the operation is timed out. Let's see if we can restart the call from the other end. Reconnect, there we go. So the call is connected, there we go. So I must have dropped the call from the other end. While I'm on this page, you can see the green block right here where it says Tom 2, that's my caller, and that's caller number 1. And I've got the number just kind of obscured a little bit here today, so you can't call me while I'm doing this. But the next 2 lines are pretty important. This tells me this is the resolution that the caller is sending me, 1920 by 1080. And they're sending it to me right now at about 2500 kbps, or 2.5 megabits per second, 30 frames per second, and I've got a latency of 33 milliseconds, so that's 1 frame. But we're really cheating because it's a vMix call. And remember, vMix call negotiates the shortest distance between 2 points, and in this case, it's my studio. And so this is the delay or the latency from one PC to another. The second line down here is the audio line, which is coming in at 48,000 hertz, 6 kbps, and 50 milliseconds. So it's slightly out of sync. You know, maybe looks like 25 milliseconds, so maybe a frame, not the kind of thing that anybody's got to notice. You see there's a lot of text down here. Basically, it's just let's see if we can scroll down and show you the whole thing. Yeah, there we go. You can see this is kind of the backstory of the call being connected, and at the very bottom, just out off the screen where you can't see, it says connected. But really what I want to draw your attention to is this little bar graph here in the top, because the bar graph, when you click it, it opens a whole new section here, and these are the deeper stats. And I have one call, and there are four aspects to that one call. There's video in from the caller, audio in from the caller, and then video and audio out to the caller. And each one of the lines here gives me the stats for the call. So the resolution, the codec, the kilobytes per second, maximum kilobytes per second, frames per second, frames lost, keyframes, packets per second, packets lost per second, packets lost percentage, resent packets, buffer in milliseconds, and the address, in this case the IP address. So we can see that the resolution that's coming in is 1920 by 1080. The resolution that's being sent out is 640 by 360. Now, I chose that resolution. When I set up the call, I chose that resolution to go to my caller because I really don't care. Well, I do care, but in this case, I want to conserve my uplink bandwidth, so I sent them low resolution video. And we can see that the kilobits per second is pretty low, 200 to 400 for the video that I'm sending out, whereas the video that's coming in is about 3,000. Frames per second, 30 and 30 on either side. That's good, and I'm just comparing video right now, not the audio. Frames lost, 0 all the way across the board. Packets lost all the way across the board. If you see frames lost and packet loss, that indicates that you've got a problem. And most likely, it is a problem with the internet, with stuff just getting lost, or the sender's PC is not able to keep up, or your PC is not able to keep up. One of those three, that's where you want to look. You want to look for the problem. But let's, okay, we're going to click that bar graph again, and we'll just go back to the stats that were sitting there waiting for us. This This is the backstory, if you will. So let's go back to, we'll go back to this screen for a second, and then we'll go back to the audio portion. And our call is sitting right here in the top right-hand corner. And this is the way it would natively come in. So if we had just established a vMix call, this is what it would look like. It would have the follow button, and that says toggle automatic audio mixing for this input. That's a long way of saying, hey, when this input's active in output, then this button right here, the audio, will turn on. I just clicked it to turn it on. So we're gonna come back and watch that in just a second. The master says that this audio is going out on my stream if I'm streaming from master, and it's being recorded if I'm recording the master. The A and the B are the two channels. I'm not using those channels, at least not for this broadcast, so they're not green at this point. The S is for solo, so if I wanted to individually monitor just this input, I could click the solo and do that. And then, of course, this little dealie right here is the volume meter. The cog icon allows me to open up, and let's go back here for just a second. And you can see I've opened up a window, and we're not going to go into this window because it really doesn't impact what we're doing today. But you can see that there is no latency, there's no delay set on this input, there's no gain set on this input, so we'll close that back. All right, so I've got a caller, and let's see if we can bring that caller kind of active here. And so let's bring that in, and when we do that, what happens is, and let me pop this one thing up so you can see again. Well, you won't be able to see it because it's going to change. Yep, there we go. You saw that little light go off as the input that, let's see, there's the light. Can we show you the light? Yeah, the light was on, and that's this guy right here. That's the caller from the other PC. So that's actually video coming from the other PC. It just happens to be a still image from the other PC, but that is the audio, and we don't seem to be getting audio. We didn't turn it on in the other PC. Let's turn it on in the other PC for a second. Here we go. And that should give us audio. Uh-oh. What did we do? Let's go back. Let's turn that off. There we go. So I don't know. Let's see. Let's put on a headset here and see. We had this tested earlier, but then we tried our debacle of going live from the beginning. And let's see if this guy's audio is there. I don't hear any audio from him. Is he sending audio? He's supposed to be sending audio to the A channel. Excuse me just a second while we check this. And audio outputs. Okay, we don't care about that. When I do that, do you guys get an echo at this point? Do you hear a double audio from me? Maybe not yet. Let's just leave that the way it is and see if that causes a problem. I don't think I have it set to master on the other end. You know, that's the thing when you try to demo, is if you had a caller, but you don't really have a caller. I was just trying not to annoy you guys. So we don't appear to be getting audio from that other guy. We did earlier. And that's a good example of how you can get something that you think is going to be working, and it just doesn't work anymore. Oh, I know why it is. It's turned down in the other one. Let's try this one more time. Let's turn that down and turn this up. Testing 1, 2, 3. There we go. It might be on. Yeah, I can hear that. It's on. This thing on? Testing 1, 2, 3. That sounds like the guy. That sounds like the guy. Hush up. I don't think it's on. All right, so let's testing 1, 2, 3. So you can see now the little light went off. His audio right here went blue, which means it's still present. It's still there. It's just not active. Now we can turn him on by just clicking this. On. Testing 1, 2, 3. So now his audio is on. Might be on. I'm going to turn him back off for just a second. But if you have a situation where you have a guest on a show and you want the guest on the show, is this thing on? You want him to talk. I think it's on. You want him to talk when he's on the screen, but maybe he's showing a slide, or you're showing a slide and he's commenting on the slide, or you're showing a video and he's commenting on the video or something, but his video image, either in a picture-in-picture like this or a full screen. Let's see, can we do a full screen of him? Yeah, there we go. Or the full screen, his video, you would want his video on right now. This thing on? Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Is this thing on? So in both those situations, testing. Both those situations, you would want his. We got to turn this guy off. Yeah, I can hear that. That's just terrible. Okay, we'll turn him off. So in that situation, you want his audio. When he's on the screen, you want his audio on. But when something else is on the screen, you want his audio on too. So we're going to take that one. And let's see, is that this one right here? Yeah, there we go. Nope, sorry, that's the wrong one. It should be number 6. There we go. So number 6, we're going to take the toggle automatic audio mixing for this input. We're going to turn that off. So now the guest is still muted because that button is not on. But, and if we click it, 1, 2, 3. There he is. And so we can control his audio by turning this off and on manually, or if we don't have slides or PowerPoints or something else where his image would not be on the screen, would not be in the output, if it's a situation where his image is not an output, then you want the audio on. It's on. It is on. Yeah, it's on. It's on. You want his audio on all the time. Now you can tell in that situation, obviously it's pretty annoying because it's just a recording. But when you want your guest, he would have come on automatically right now, except that I've turned that follow button off. I've turned that auto mixing button off. If I turn the auto mixing button right on right now, it doesn't do anything because vMix doesn't know that he is moved in there. So let's just merge back and forth between these two. We'll go back to that one, and then we'll go back to that one. 1, 2, 3. And that turns him on automatically. We'll merge back to it, and you can see that the light was on, and it'll turn itself off. There you go. See, it turns itself off. So this is the tricky part right there. Those two buttons, that's the tricky part in you being able to hear your guest all the time or sometimes. Now, a lot of times you'll have a situation where you'll have a guest, and let's go back to this shot for just a second. Testing 1, 2, 3. And we got to turn him off because we don't want him talking right now. But sometimes you'll have a situation where your guest doesn't come on until a certain part of the show. So you may have an introduction, you may have an advertisement, you may play a video, whatever it is at the beginning of your show, and then you want to bring your guest on. You could leave the auto mixing function. You could leave that on, but there may come a situation where where you need to show something else while the guest is still active on the show, and then their audio would be muted at that point. So better, I think, to program their audio using a shortcut so that you can press a key on the keyboard, or if you have one, your X keys. You notice I've got this giant key right down here at the bottom. That is my audio for my mic on the other room. I've got another little button right there. You see all the musical notes on it. And that's what mutes every other guest. And it turns them off and on. And it's got an activator with it. vMix is wonderful in allowing you to have a light that X keys, vMix can turn on a light and turn off a light in X keys to indicate the status of a particular input. So in this particular case, we'll get that back up here where you can see it. Boy, it would have been nice to have a camera for that, wouldn't it? You can see that the light is on right here, which is my mic right there. The light is not on for this big guy, which is my mic on the other side of the room. And the light is not on for my guest, because otherwise he would be really annoying.
I don't think it's on.
Yeah, we don't want to turn him on. So to recap, let's go back here for just a second. This is the call. Sorry, hold on, I got distracted. This is the vMix call, and we can see that we have audio present because the audio meter is jumping up and down. The audio is not on because it's not green, but the automatic audio mixing is on, what I like to call the follow button. You see how it kind of has a left-right arrow, with the left arrow being orange and the right arrow being green? That kind of corresponds to the default settings in vMix for the preview and output windows. And the top of the preview window is that same color orange. The top of the output window is a similar color green, not quite the same. And so when we turn that off, we are no longer automatically sending this audio if the video associated with it is in the output window. So when we come back to our guy right here, he's not active. We can go back to that, and we can turn on the follow button. And so when he comes back,
Testing 1, 2, 3.
there he is. And when we go away, it turns him off. Or we can have him on. We can have him on
It might be
all
on.
the time.
Yeah, I
So
can
no
hear
matter
that.
what's
It's
going,
on.
he's with us 100% of the time.
Is this thing on? Testing 1, 2, 3.
There you go.
Is this thing on?
So no matter what we're showing,
I don't think it's
he's
on.
active. We can
Is it
can
on?
hear him, and our
Testing,
audience
1,
can
2,
hear him.
3. Well, it might be on. Yeah, I can hear that. It's on.
Okay. Now I've turned the master off. So you can't hear him. I can't hear him. Let's turn that back off for just a second. If I solo him, I can hear him. But you can't hear him. So I've turned the solo off. I'll turn the master back on.
Is this thing on? Testing 1.
We'll turn his audio off. We'll turn solo on. I can hear him with solo, but you can't hear him with solo. So we'll turn him back on. There he is. Or we'll turn it. Now if we leave both those
Is this thing
on,
on?
and we go over
Testing
here,
1, 2, 3.
and then we come back,
Is this
it will turn that one off automatically. So it will turn that one off automatically. So we can automatically turn him on
Yeah.
and turn him off and leave that in that position, but it's going to be a situation where he's gone in a lot of times when we don't necessarily want him to be gone. So hopefully, I think we probably.
Well, it might be on.
No, we'll turn him off. Hopefully that makes that a little simpler. Now let's talk about. So that's audio with a caller in vMix Call. Let's talk about what a caller might see. Now, well, let's see. There are two ways a caller can call in. They can call in using a browser like Chrome or Firefox or on an iPhone Safari. They can call in from a Mac. They can call in from a PC. They can call in from an Android. They can call in from an iPhone. Got to use Safari on iPhone, Safari on a Mac, because they have the right guts to them. Let's put it that way. Something called WebRTC that is the magic behind the scenes that makes all this work. When they use Safari, when they use Google Chrome, they don't have control over their audio or their video. They can't change they can probably change the source if they know how, but they probably can't do a whole lot more with it. They can't change the resolution of the video, and that's really kind of the prime thing. If you have a situation where you've got a guest calling in and they are bandwidth challenged, if they use their browser will sort of sense how much bandwidth they have, and it will adjust the resolution based on the bandwidth, and it will prioritize audio over video. So if the bandwidth gets absolutely horrible, the picture will go away. It'll be just the last frame, kind of like that, but you'll still have, or is it black? I don't remember. It's either black or last frame. But it's a good idea to have a photo queued up that you can pop into that blank when you know you have a guest that has a bandwidth problem. If a guest is calling with vMix on their end, maybe the $60 version of vMix, maybe another version. That is, you've given them a password. They've put it into their vMix on a vMix Connect to call. Then you can they can control the resolution that they send to you, and it is not dynamic. It is fixed. And so in those situations, obviously, if they've got vMix, they know a little bit more than if somebody just connecting through a browser. Then you can advise them on that. Now, it's always a good idea to have a kind of a technology troubleshooting session before the actual call. It might be a day or two before. It might be a half an hour before. It probably shouldn't be 5 minutes before a show, because if there's a problem, you may not have time to change it, to fix it. Frequently, guests will use a mic that just doesn't work well, and so they have to go search up another mic or use the mic off their webcam, that kind of thing. Chris is saying that you could use Chrome for Mac. Actually, in the Mac and iPhone world, the Safari uses Chrome behind the scenes, and so that's in that sense only it's ubiquitous. Back to vMix Call. In vMix Call situations, if the call drops for some reason, the guest has the opportunity to reconnect. For some reason, and at some point I want to talk to Martin about this, the host does not have an opportunity to reconnect, and so we don't always know how to get a guest back if we're the host. And look at this, my mouse has decided to stop working in the middle of all this. Oh, this is going to be sweet. So we don't have a way necessarily to communicate with our guest that the call is dropped and we need to get the call back. There is a chat function, but the chat function only works, of course, when the call is active. Let's see what else. As a general rule, and this is as a general rule, everybody makes up their own general rules, but this is my general rule. My general rule is that if I have a guest that I am sending them a pretty low resolution video because I am jealously guarding all of my bandwidth. And that really stems back to the days when I was live streaming with, you know, 0.7 megabits per second. In fact, I still do that on Sundays, but not using vMix Call. But with vMix Call, if you're sending them a 1080p stream at 4.5 megabits per second and you've got a 10 megabit stream yourself, that only leaves you 5.5 megabits per second. And you remember the internet's fluctuating up and down, so you don't really have that 5.5 all the time. You only have to drop below it once to cause a problem. And remember the 60% rule. That is, if you've got 10 megabits per second, you don't want to use any more than 60% of it, so that's 6. So that only leaves you room for a 1.5 megabit feed, which is going to be a decent 720 feed. So no sense in taking your guest at 1080 and streaming 720 unless the primary purpose of the whole show is to get a recording. So that is, you're recording your guest at 1080 even though you're only streaming them at 720. We actually record our church services at 1080 even though we stream them at, believe it or not, at 360. Yeah, 360. It's a horrible situation bandwidth wise. So the reason for saying that was to make the suggestion that you generally, if you can, send your guest a low bandwidth feed. Now there'll be some times when you have a connection with the guest PC where you remember the stats that we showed just a second ago. Let's see if I can show those again. Yeah, there we go. You can see now that the latency has gotten on the video to the hundreds, and the audio latency has gotten to the hundreds. So that's going to be about 2 or 3 frames. The net effect of that is that
This thing on?
Oh golly!
Testing. 1,
that
2,
guy's
3.
come back. How do we
Is
get
this
rid
thing
of
on?
him?
I don't.
Let's turn him off. The net effect of that is that, excuse me, boy, that he just fried my brain on that one. I'll have to circle back around to that because I can't remember that one. So you want to send your guest really as low a bandwidth as you can. The latency between you and them, as it gets higher, it's that kind of that pregnant pause, that uncomfortable pause between the time you say something, it gets to them, they respond to it, say it, and it gets back to you. It can really seem like an uncomfortable delay in the broadcast. If you watch some of the news shows, a lot of times when they'll have somebody from overseas coming in from Israel or Europe or something like that, there'll be that kind of situation where there's that latency in the broadcast. One of the ways to minimize that, and it has nothing to do with technology, it just has to do with good craft, is to kind of have an agreement with your guest that when you get to the end of the sentence, you may say some other kind of filler words, but when you get to the end of the sentence, they can go ahead and respond to it, even though there's going to be another, half a second or second two of filler words. For example, if I were to get to the end of the sentence, I might put in a laugh or a chuckle, or there might be something else to just try to fill up that uncomfortable space for a second. Now, you always have that polite guest that wants to wait until you're finished speaking, until you're finished saying everything before they respond, and so that trick probably won't work very well. Won't work very well with them. Let's see. There will be some times when the latency gets really, really high, and I'm not talking hundreds of milliseconds. I'm talking thousands or tens of thousands of milliseconds. We had that happen last week when we had 8 folks streaming in. I had asked everybody to stream to me 1080p at 4.5 megabits per second. And what we found is, even though I had the bandwidth, I have 100 megs down, so I could receive 100 megs, and 8 people sending 4.5 was going to be, what, about 35, 38? Even though I could receive 38, my PC wasn't capable of handling it. And so there was some latency involved in processing the video on my end. Now, I'm running minimal setup, an old i7 with a GTX 750 card with 2 megs of RAM on it. One day I'm going to upgrade to a nice sweet setup. But in some ways, I like having this minimalistic setup because it helps me deal with the type of situations that a lot of folks deal with. Not everybody has the checkbook for a lot of power. And so, if I can do it with an i7 2600 CPU, 16 megabits of 16 gigabytes of RAM, and a video card with 2 megabytes of RAM on it, then you can make it work too. And so what we did on that particular call was that we asked everybody to drop back to 720p resolution. And in vMix, there are actually 3 choices for that. If your caller has vMix, they can choose 720 low, medium, and high. I think it's 800, 1,000, and 1,200, something like that, or maybe 2,000. So there's some options there. And in the situation the other day, once everybody dropped back to 720, then the people that had a latency of 2,000 or 20,000 milliseconds, they were able to catch back up. And I don't recall whether they caught back up all at once, as if you had kind of a real fast video, or whether it just jumped back to real time. But those are the kinds of things, hopefully, that you can get straightened out in the tech time a day before the show, or significantly, say a half an hour or more prior to the show, and you have an opportunity to discover those problems. Now, there are always situations where somebody in the office is going to decide to upload a huge file, or if you're calling from a home studio, that somebody decides, in addition to your 3 guests coming in, that 14 people in the house want to watch Netflix. So bandwidth can be challenged by things that are local, but it also can be challenged by things over which you have no possible control. Out in the wild, where suddenly there's an anomaly in the internet, and the stream that you are on is not a good connection, and so WebRTC has to negotiate a better connection, and that can take a little bit of time. Depending on the difficulty, it can take from 0 to never. It really depends. There have been situations where when there's a denial of service attack, it affects people all over the world. All right, so that's latency, that's audio and audio latency, video latency, and then the audio function in vMix. Let's talk a little bit about the vMix call feature and how it's arranged in vMix itself. As you know, vMix has multiple levels, multiple packages, multiple editions. The top edition, the Pro edition, the $1,200 US edition, it has every feature imaginable. It has features just spilling out the sides. It has so many features. 4 cameras of instant replay, 8 vMix callers, 4 channels of ISO recording in the multi-quarter. It has all the bells and whistles. But a lot of people, you may not need 8 callers. vMix 4K handles 2 callers. So there's a big jump there between the vMix Pro with 8 callers and the vMix 4K with 2 callers. And then the next thing down is vMix HD with 1 caller. And then below that is vMix, the basics. Excuse me. The basic vMix packages that don't support initiating any calls. I think they can connect to a call, but they can't initiate a call. So the question I get asked all the time is, can I just buy, I have vMix HD and I need 3 callers. Can I just buy 2 extra callers? I don't need the 4K. I just need the 2 extra callers. Well, it's not, the way vMix is structured, it's not like going to the car dealership and asking for a car that they can add an option to. The vMix package is the way the vMix package is. In order to, it would be a tech support nightmare to have all sorts of add-ins to any particular section of any particular edition of vMix, and then to be able to determine if something wasn't working, exactly why it's not working. To keep vMix, to keep vMix reasonably priced, which we can easily lose sort of that, lose sight of that. To keep vMix reasonably priced, we have to make it, number one, we have to make it so that the guys can make the software, and number two, that they can support the software. And support is the more packages you have out in the wild, the more support costs you, and the more important it is to modulize. Modulize, is that a word? To make modules of the vMix so that you can support that module. And so the HD module is one, the 4K module is one, the Pro is one, and it's just not economically possible for vMix to allow you to buy the extras because they can't do it. Somebody's saying in the chat right now they should make the 4K more attractive by adding 2 more vMix callers. Well, and I had somebody tell me the other day, golly, if you could just add 1 more to the, if the 4K instead of doing 2 would do 3. If the 4K instead of doing 3 would do 4. I mean, there's always going to be that limit where you want the next thing up. And the bottom line is, first of all, the first bottom line is the software is ridiculously, drastically underpriced. Try doing any of this stuff out there with reliable software or hardware for that matter for this price. You just can't do it. You can't do it. So we can't kill the goose that's laying the golden eggs when we're buying the eggs for $29.95 when really they're worth whatever gold is an ounce. We're getting a steal of a deal. So we got to remember not to be greedy, to be very, very satisfied with the wonderful deal that we're getting. We're getting a 53-foot television truck in a piece of software that runs on a PC. And if you want more than 2 callers, if you want that 3rd caller and you can't afford it, go on the internet and there's a video I did on how to add Skype or Zoom to a call. Is it easy? Well, for some people, yes. For some people, no. Audio is a little tricky. vMix handles all that audio automatically. It does a custom mix minus for each caller. And in addition, the audio is full duplex. So you can actually talk over your caller. Your caller can talk over you. You can have wonderful arguments. You can sing together if you wanted to, if you could get the latency right. But the bottom line is, if you want more features, you're going to have to pay the piper to get more features, or figure out another way around it. That's the bottom line. The bottom line. But there's a tendency for us to get spoiled and think, oh golly, if only it did just a little bit more. And we can say that the folks with multi-quarter can say the same things. The folks with instant replay can say the same things. Oh, what if the 4K could support 2 channels of instant replay instead of just 1? For vMix, it just becomes an unworkable situation. They don't have enough staff to cover all that and put out great software and support it well. Byron said he used Zoom the other day, and it worked well for him. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. Dave says it's modularize. Okay, got it. Thank you, Dave. All right, so I'm off my soapbox there. And by the way, I'm a reseller. So, in some ways, I hear this story a lot because people as potential clients are asking me, well, why can't I have 3 vMix callers, for the same price as 2 plus a little bit extra for the third one? And the answer is you can't, or you have to do it. You have to do it a different way. So that's it. I hope this has been helpful in unpacking some of the audio with vMix call. Again, remember when you first initiate your vMix call, their audio is on auto mixing, automatically mix audio, which means if their video is not here, their audio is off. So that's the big news for today. If their video is not showing here somewhere, it's off. So let's see if we can pop that annoying guy in here again. No, we can't, because we're using a what's it called? A KLM switch for our mouse and keyboard to go between the two PCs today, and it looks like that's bombed out on us. So all we've got left is the X keys, and I don't have the X keys programmed for the one input I need right here. So, oh well, we could do this. Let's see, we can put him here. And for some reason that didn't make him go live. Well, that's all right. That's all right. There we go. So that's it, folks. We're going to close out the show here. We'll go to a brief post show. Oh, I know. Before we do, coming up next week, we're going to have a special Tuesday edition of Streaming Idiots next week, because the local school I've been working with, even though school's out for the summer, the local school, the 6th graders, well, they graduated from 6th grade. They're in 7th grade, or they will be in 7th grade next month. They are coming to this studio next week, and together, the 12 of us, if all of them show up, and their teachers, are going to put on a Streaming Idiot show. So perhaps some of them will come on and be talent. I know some of them will want to get here at this desk and operate vMix. So that'll be at our same time, 3 o'clock Eastern here in the U.S., but it will be on Tuesday, and I think you want to see this, especially if you work with schools, or if you're thinking about volunteering with your local school, or trying to get a contract with your local school, or something like that. I want you just to see the light in the eyes of these kids as they are involved in this process. It's really, really a ton of fun. All right, well, let's go to post show. So we'll close out this show. So we'll see you next Tuesday at 3 o'clock Eastern. With a show with 7th graders. It'll be a ton of fun. Until then, or until the post show, which comes right up next, I'll see you later. And we are out. All right. So let's see. Post show. We're going to change, even though this says post show, we're going to change to the other one, because the other one's got the chat in it. And again, our little KVM switch is not working very well here. So Jerome's here. Hello, Jerome. Michael Graves is here. Byron. Yeah, there you go. And Dave and Hamlet, and who is Live 360 BD? Please introduce yourselves and say hi. Rich is here with a pregnant pause. I figured you'd like that, Rich. The solo button's really pretty neat. If you haven't discovered the solo button, it's a great way to you can mute your own audio to everybody else, and then test it so that only you can hear it. It's really nice. Um, let's see. Let's scroll back in the chat here and see what else we might mix. What is a pre-fade? A pre-fade. Oh, that's good. I don't know what a pre-fade is. Is that when you fade before you fade? Or is it kind of like a fake fade? It's a pre-fade. That was Cliff's idea. No Crime or Firefox on Mac. Cliff, again, Safari is preferred. And because Safari is probably going to be updated with the latest update of Chrome, I think that's going to be your most bulletproof path on a Mac. So there you go. Yeah, pre-fade. Sorry, I had too much fun with that. To listen to audio pre-fade means to listen to the audio before it's had any effects put on it. That is, the volume has been increased or the EQ has been added or anything like that. It's that raw volume. And a lot of times you want to hear that for various reasons. Or you may be doing an auxiliary output and you want to use the pre-fades on the auxiliary output because you don't want somebody working the rest of the board to change the volume on one of your outputs. If you use a pre-fade setting instead of a post-fade setting, you can avoid that. Let's see here. There, Michael Graves says pre-fade means signals being taken before the control of the level. There you go. Dewey Evans is here. Welcome, Dewey. Glad to have you. Tom Curtis is here. Hello, Tom. Glad to have you. Looking back through the questions here. All right, let's see. Cliff asked a good question, I think. What else is the follow button used for besides a vMix call? The follow button is on every single audio input. Every input that you have has a follow button on it. Let's see if I can bring up, let's see, that's number 6. So number 6 here, you can see that Tom's boom mic, or Tom's mic boom A, has a follow button. The desk mic ATR 2100 has a follow button. The rest of them are closed, but if you could see them, you would see that they had a follow button too. And you can assign an audio input to a video input. And so if the audio input is set on auto mix, when that audio input moves to output, it turns itself. I mean, when that video input moves to output and that audio input is one of the multi-views with that, it turns that audio on. And then as it moves out, it turns it off. I can't imagine a lot of folks are going to use that, but there would be situations where it would be helpful to have something like that. Let's see, and early on you guys were telling me there was no echo. Let's see. And if anybody missed it, you want to take a look at the world of live streaming. I think it was from last week, Dave, where you guys did, and actually the week before it too, but last week especially, where you did the automation in vMix. That was pretty cool. And Dave says that not all inputs with audio have the auto follow button on by default. And it's that default setting that a lot of times can trip you up. And definitely, I think cameras, if there's an audio association with the camera, that's on by default. If it's a vMix call, which is kind of the similar situation, that is video with audio, it's on by default. But it's a little tricky if you've not discovered it before. And you know, that's the way a lot of us are. at least most of the people that I end up talking to, is we dive in it. We want to do something, and so we go to do something, and we learn what we need to do in order to do it. And then we bump into things that don't work the way we think that we think they should, and that's when we dig into the documentation to find out how things go. But it really, I can't commend, especially those of you that are starting out with vMix, I can't commend to you strongly enough to go through the vMix YouTube tutorial series, because there's so much information that you will get that you may not need right now, but it's going to save your life down the way. And it's akin to, for those of you that are my age, perhaps, or close, akin to when you had encyclopedias in the home, and you would take an encyclopedia down off the shelf and you would thumb through that giant book, the A's, for example, and when you were looking up ant, you would also find that there was something called the ant eater, and then you would bump into other words or other items that had ant as a prefix to it. And so your learning would be broadened by that experience. And I think watching the videos from vMix will have a similar positive experience, a positive outcome for you. So there you go. What else? What else? Did I mention before that we were putting together a class for instant replay? TJ Thompson's going to teach it. It's going to start the first week of August. It'll run for 6 weeks. So if you are into sports and want to do replay, you haven't been doing replay, you want to do replay, we will have that class. It's going to be a great class. You will know everything you need to know to do instant replay beautifully. If you have vMix 4K, you have the ability to do one camera in, one channel out. If you have vMix Pro, you have the ability to do 4 cameras in, 2 channels out. And we are actually building now a PC that's intended as a kind of a single function instant replay machine. It'll take 4 in and 2 out. And at that point, unless you're just amazing, and I mean really amazing, you can't switch cameras, do graphics, do scores, and do instant replay on top of it. It really does take a dedicated operation. Let's see. Jamie Chavis says, vMix call versus NDI input for in-house resources, which is better? Probably NDI. Probably NDI, because NDI becomes a camera per se. vMix call still is a connection. And it looks like my connection may have timed out again. At least that's what it shows on the screen. I don't know if it was looking for activity, although I see the audio is still active. Interesting. I would go with NDI in-house every day. Every day. As long as you're on the same network. Was that before electricity? Yes, it was back in the days when we had oil lanterns that made from what was it? Sperm whales, humpback whales. Dave says, me listening to the room is my application for it. He's talking about solo. Can also test individual inputs during setup to make sure each one is working without having the interference from other inputs. There you go. That's the solo button. That's how the pros use solo. And it also gives you an opportunity as you're sound testing, other mics in the room or vMix calls in the room for that matter, or NDI calls, that you can use the volume meter in vMix to kind of get everybody leveled out. I shoot for 12 decibels as a comfortable volume, knowing that people can generally turn it up a little louder or they can turn it down a little bit more. The encyclopedia, yes, yes. You spelled it right, so you know what an encyclopedia is. Like now I have spell check. So the instant replay is going to be a cool class. We're going to offer specials. If you don't have the vMix 4K or vMix Pro, we'll have some specials on that. If you want to get some of the gear, like the jog shuttles from X Keys, there are 3 different offerings there. We'll have some specials on that. And I think I had a list here of what other kinds of things that. Oh yeah, and the instant replay PC that we're building, if anybody is that we're building now, if anybody's interested in that, we can. If you're a member of the class, we will give you a deal on that as well. And the way the classes work, and I think they've worked pretty well in the past, is that we'll do this class will be an evening class, 1 day a week for 6 weeks. It'll run anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours, just depending on questions and answers. It'll be a series of presentations each week with a question and answer time period in between. It'll be recorded, and the recording will be uploaded to a secret Facebook group that everybody in the class will be invited to join. And that'll give you 24/7 access to the recordings for as long as Facebook will have them up there. Plus, that'll be a great place to ask questions or to pose questions to TJ for the next session. So that if you think, I gotta remember to ask him such and such, just put that question into the Facebook group, and then it's there in the record, and everybody can have a chance to ponder it. And what's happened the other times when we've done the classes online is that everybody gets to know everybody, and then people start helping each other with things that they're strong on where somebody else may be weak. We use Zoom for the class, and so we have a theoretical limit of 100 participants. We're not going to take 100 participants. That'd be way too many. We'd never get through the question and answer time. We'll probably limit it to 12 or 15. The class is going to be $129.95. $129.95. So call it $130. And limited to 12 to 15 folks. We'll just have to see. I mean, it's it's not going to be a hard number. If we've got 15 and there's a 16th person who wants to get in, we'll let them in. And people always ask me, what if I miss the first class and then I decide I want to come in? Well, that's the benefit of having the class recorded, so you can catch back up. It's not as good as being there, but we'll catch back up. With Zoom, we do ask that you have a video camera. A webcam or something like that, so that we can see you, so that TJ can kind of gauge your expressions to see, are you understanding, are you not getting it? We want to be able to see people raise their hand. And you need a microphone, and preferably earbuds, as opposed, or even over the ear, as opposed to speakers in the room, because that just adds too much audio to a situation. Cliff and I have been working, to go back to vMix Call for just a minute. Cliff more than I, but Cliff's been working up recommendations for callers. He has some clients that have some remote guests calling in, and they've never done this before. They don't know what to do. They don't know they shouldn't sit in front of the window. They think, hey, if I sit in front of the window, it'll be a beautiful view over my shoulder. What happens is the light from the window makes their face in shadows, and you can't see them. So that's that. Perhaps at some point, Cliff, you'll be able to share that list with us. That would be a valuable list to talk about. How to get your guest ready for a vMix call. Dave is asking in the chat, when does the class start? The class tentatively is going to start the first week of August. I need to confirm that with TJ, but that is the intention, to start the first week of August and to go for 6 weeks. And again, each class would be made up of multiple presentations with a question and answer period after each one. It would be obviously tremendously helpful if you had vMix 4K or Pro. But I think some people might still be able to get the free 60-day trial of the vMix Pro. When vMix released vMix 22 with the GT title designer in it, that was a big deal. And Martin Sinclair, the developer of vMix, my 19th cousin, we think, Martin wanted everybody to have a chance to try it, even if you had the HD edition or even a lower edition. He wanted you to be able to try all the features in it, because there's some features of GT Title Designer that are only available in 4K or Pro. But he wanted everybody to be able to do it, so he kind of reset the counter that allows you to have only downloaded the vMix Trial Edition one time per PC. So some people will have the ability to download a second vMix trial that will go for 60 days. So don't download it now if you want to have it for the class. And we'll have specials if you want to upgrade your edition, your vMix HD to 4K or something like that. Rich says, anyone use vMix Call to preview the program out? Rich, that's an interesting thought. Give us some more on that one and why. Hamlet says, what will be the Eastern time for the classes? We're still working that out. We want to make sure it's there when TJ's there. The U.S. has 4 time zones, from the Eastern to Central to Mountain to Pacific. And so we want to be able to work it at a time when people can get to the class. So it's a situation where 5:30 in Pacific is 8:30 on the Eastern coast in the Eastern time zone, which a 2-hour class would mean it ended at 10:30. So we kind of have to do a balancing act. We did a class, I think it was a vMix 101 class a year or so ago, where we offered the class twice a day. We offered it in the afternoon and then the same class again in the evening. And some people came to both, and some people came to one all the time and not the other, and then some people swapped back and forth. I think there was one married couple that he came to the afternoon class and she came to the evening class, which was fine. No problem with that. I don't know that we'll do 2 classes on this one. This is going to be pretty in-depth. And so I think the plan is to do an evening class. And again, TJ's got a regular job with his video company, and we don't want to pull him away from that. Michael Graves, FYI, browsers may be constrained to delivering 720p using vMix Call. That's true. They may be constrained to using 480p. It may be a bandwidth constraint. Michael, if you've got some specifics on that, he said, while the WebRTC code in Chrome theoretically supports 4K, in practice it doesn't work. And that may be an internet thing. That it just can't, that WebRTC can't substantiate, it can't be assured that there's a solid enough connection to support that 4K consistently all the way through, and so it says, nah, we're just going to do 1080. I don't know. I'm just guessing. right. Well, I need to go get my camera off of manual focus. I was testing depth of field on Monday for a client, a potential client, to see how far away would the camera need to be from a for real backdrop before you could really perceive a depth of field change. And this is the PTZ Optics PT12X. And I think the lowest f-stop was the 1.8, and we found out that at 3 feet between the subject and the backdrop, there really wasn't a distinguishable difference in focus between the subject and the backdrop. But at 6 feet is when we began to see a distinguishable difference between the subject and the backdrop. So 6, maybe 5, but the more distance, the better the effect. I think in this particular person's case, they had a restraint. They had kind of already built their studio, and we're trying to figure out how to give it that look. And so we may have to find a different camera that has a little more flexibility there. Let's see, Michael Graves says, the bandwidth estimation engine is broken, even on a desktop. Oh man, I hate when things break. Cliff said, I guess he's talking about f-stops and cameras because he's camera buff. Cliff used to consult with Canon on a variety of things, which is very low. It has to be at least 6. Okay, well there you go. So we may have trouble finding a camera that's going to do them at 3. 1.8 is fast, but remember the processor is tiny. And use a mirrorless. Yeah, that may be where they go. I think they borrowed one and were able to get some good results from that. But it was out of their price range. So, you have to make sacrifices. Try a Sony A6000. Thank you, Cliff. There we go. Cliff's the guy. We're also thinking about putting together a class on building your own studio. We got a good result. And hey, Frank, glad to have you. We got a good result from the poll that we put in the Streaming Idiots Facebook group. If you're not a member of that group, we'd love to have you. Come to Facebook, do a search on Streaming Idiots, and sign up. And we had 45 folks, I think, plus or minus, express interest in how to build a studio class. And so we'll be working on that. And the instant replay class is going to make. We'll start that the 1st of August. We'll get that put in our store at easternshorebroadcasting.com pretty soon so that you can sign up. It'll also have more details about time and dates. And what was the other thing? I know there was a significant number of interest in folks that wanted to learn how to do a talk show. So we may take a look at doing that one, maybe a little later in the fall. Rich says live streaming university. Well, maybe live streaming kindergarten. How about that? Let's keep our expectations low, Rich. Our expectations low. We also thought about doing a free class for folks that were interested in live streaming in their church or house of worship, and kind of maybe doing it a little differently with that is to bring in some outside folks that had some success in doing, or had failures for that matter. You can learn more from a failure than you can from success in starting out live streaming in their church. And so we've had a lot of folks that we've talked to that have expressed interest in being kind of a one-time guest. And so we will have a go at that and see how that might work. Is this chat just like way behind? It looks way behind. Let's see if we can refresh it. No, I don't know why it's. Oh, I bet it's just not cooperating. Are we still streaming? Yeah, we're still streaming. There we go. Dave says, and you can't see it here. Dave says, so Tom, who will you get to teach the talk show class? Oh, that is too funny. That is too funny. That is too funny. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there it goes. Now it's moving a little bit. Yeah, but Michael, it is way behind. I don't know, Dave. We'll have to find somebody that knows something about talk shows to see if we can find a way to get somebody in there that knows something about it. All right, the chat is very delayed. Rich says timestamp of PST 119. Well, that's what I've got, 319 here, so I'm not being delayed, but over here it's being delayed pretty significantly. Michael Graves getting a Raspberry Pi 4 tomorrow, hoping to see it can be used to decode NDI. Yes, that would be interesting. Boy, if I were Bird Dog and Magewell and some of those folks, I would be a little nervous. If you can make your own decoder. Although most of what they sell are encoders. Yeah, Cliff says, how about get the kids from the elementary school to come in and teach the class on talk show? Yeah, Cliff. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that support. You and Dave. No, I can always count on you guys. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. So when the free tickets go out for next year's Streaming Idiots meetup at NAB, I'll make sure that, I have talked to Scott Whitney. You remember Scott with Podworks, where we had had the Streaming Idiots meetup in 2017, 2018. Asked him recently about perhaps allowing us to come back to his studio. Since the numbers last year were not significantly different from the numbers of the year before, and I was concerned about just overrunning his studio. If we're only going to have 100 folks, I think we can do that, and just maybe kind of rearrange how we do things a little bit there. If you've never been to Scott's studio, it's really wonderful. He's got a podcasting setup. He's got his talk show set. He's got a green screen set, and then he's got another set. I think it's sort of I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, so he's got 4 sets, and then he's got some space too. So we'll try to work that out so that it can happen. What we're trying to do is trying not to, number one, bankrupt our sponsors, and just kind of have their help to pay for the necessities, the food and drink, and not have to have a cover charge. But that's, I'd love some input if you guys wouldn't mind a cover charge and lighten the load on the sponsors a little bit. That might work too. It's certainly not a money-making opportunity. No, it costs me a good bit every year, but that's okay because it's definitely worth it. Definitely worth it to hang out with you guys. All right, Michael Graves says that Sienna's NDI monitor for Ubuntu points the way. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. That's good. That's the problem with putting something like that out there for Ubuntu is that people like Michael Graves will reverse engineer it. Jamie Chavis says, have you tried Sling Studio and Live View Solo for remote broadcasting and iPhone camera in-house? No. No. You know, Jamie, we're just not a Mac, Apple, iPhone, iPad outfit. We're just kind of PC. Just stuck in the mud PC. Yep. But, you know, it's amazing what you can do with the PC. It is. Well, guys, I want to wrap things up. I loved having you. Loved being with you. Appreciate your time and energy today and your attention. And we will catch you next Tuesday. Remember, it's next Tuesday with the kids from the middle school. And that the instant replay class will start the first week in August. So, see you then. And we'll let the show run out a little bit so it doesn't cut you right off. Thanks for watching.